Hello, welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. My name is Kirk Henderson. I am editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. I'm joined by fellow editor Josh Bowe. We've not seen each other in several days. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
We're okay. I'm okay here. So it was, it's kind of an odd period of days off. The Mavericks lost to the Lakers. Pretty ugly road game. Was that Wednesday or Thursday?
That was Wednesday, so it's been a while.
They were scheduled to play the Warriors Friday, and then they were going to have 2 days off until they played the Celtics. And instead, what ended up happening is due to the really sad circumstance of the Golden State Warriors assistant coach passing away, and then the Warriors getting stranded in Utah. The league postponed that game, which we will have at a later date. The Mavericks had a 5 whopping days, a rarity at this point in the regular season, to kind of figure out what's been plaguing them. And then they had quite the challenge on the horizon against the Boston Celtics, and they lost 119 to 110. So don't really know where to start with this one. The Celtics were playing 4 games in 6 nights. They're on the second night of a back-to-back. The Mavericks now fall to 1-4 against teams that are playing on the second night of a back-to-back. This one I think it's a little bit of a pass compared to the others because the Celtics are simply a much deeper and better team. But that stat as a whole is an indictment of the coaching staff and their inability to prepare the players. And we've sort of shied away from bitching too much about coaching because I keep talking about how it doesn't matter relative to Luka and Kyrie being mad at Kid. But at a certain point, it's like, come on, guys. You got to have a better game plan against the Celtics than let them shoot corner threes.
Yeah, the Celtics shot 15 corner threes. They only made 5 of them, which it was a weird game. We could just say that. It was a weird game. The Celtics didn't shoot very well. They shot really well from mid-range, but they've got good jump shooters. They were only 11 of 20 at the rim. And the Mavericks were 18 of 30, a lot of smoked layups in this game.
Shots to everyone.
Everyone missed an open layup.
The ones that I'm really mad at are Josh Green, because I'm just against Josh Green. It's kind of my religion, but it was really rough.
Yeah, it was really rough. I thought they started the game fairly well. I mean, Boston shot 1 of 10 from 3 in the first quarter. I think the Mavericks had the right disposition to start the game for the most part. And they did play a little bit faster, and that's what you want to do against a team with tired legs. Mm-hmm. They did win the fast break points, but barely. They probably should have won that by a little bit more, considering how many missed threes Boston had. Boston was 15 of 46 from 3. That's 32%. That's not horrific. It's not good, but that's a lot of misses for only making 15 out of 46. They really should have been able to maybe push the tempo a little bit more, because we literally just saw the Mavericks have a bad 3-point shooting night, and the Lakers basically take all their 3-point misses and run it right down their throat. And they had 26 fast break points. So for the Mavericks to only have 18, that's okay, but they probably should have done a little bit better job. It felt like as the game wore on, they did not run nearly as much, and they didn't turn over a lot. They only had 10 turnovers, so it's not like they were sloppy with the ball. I just thought they tried to do a little bit too much ground and pound, and that probably starts with the first thing we need to talk about, which is Luka. And I know what the numbers say. I'm looking right at him. I know he had a 33-point, 18 rebound, 13 assist, triple-double.
Worst triple-double you might ever see from him.
This was a bad Luka game. I would not call this a great Luka game. I thought he started off a little weird. I think he didn't get some calls that, right or wrong. He just didn't get them.
It affected his game.
Yeah,
for at least a quarter. He kind of got it back, but he was out.
He got it back, but you can't throw away that many minutes against a team this good, even if they're missing Porzingis, even if they're on the second night of back to back. By the time he got really engaged into the game, they're down 16 in the second half, and like you basically have to pitch a perfect game to win the game from that point. And they weren't. They couldn't do that because not a lot of teams can do that. So like I just thought, I thought defensively his effort level was not great in the first half. I thought it got a little better as the game wore on. Obviously, he has the low light of the Jaylen Brown, breaking ankles, mid-range jumper, which did not look great.
Put that on the Jumbotron, and Tim Hardaway lost his mind.
I know.
Which I
kind of get it.
I get it too. I'm just like, well, who are you losing your mind at? Because isn't the Jumbotron person probably not in the front row? Like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, and I'm getting a lot of people telling me that Luka didn't play bad defense tonight. That Brown just made jumpers, and what are you going to do about it? And I get that to a degree, but Brown was kind of able to dictate the terms of where he wanted to go on the court. I don't necessarily think he didn't get to the rim a ton because he was getting stonewalled the whole game. Like Brown likes to shoot mid-range jumpers, and
I own him, and he's on my fantasy team. He's been a delight to watch because he's like trimmed up all the garbage from his game.
Yeah, so if you want to tuck yourself in at night and be like, well, he just made a bunch of difficult shots and Luka was fine. I don't know. I mean, there was a reason the Celtics basically abandoned their offense to run it through Brown against Luka continuously.
Yes, and I think
the Celtics don't do that if they don't feel like they have an advantage there.
Well, and then there's the point that was raised in our Slack where it's like someone was like, why is Kid on Brown? Well, because you go through the rest of the roster with the way that they were playing tonight, Luka was either on Horford at points or he was on Brown, and you can't move him onto Drew or to someone else because that means Tim Hardaway or somebody of that ilk, like Grant Williams, is on Brown. And we'll get to those guys.
Yeah,
we'll talk about them. But in all honesty, like Luka's size is your best option. And Brown played a great game. Luka could afford to play better defense tonight, but that wasn't the difference. I mean, there might have been at spots, but it's like you get frustrated with Luka's defense every game. But it's like
and it wasn't just the ISO defense, like the transition defense early. Like he had a couple of bad possessions, complaining to the refs. I remember there was one early Drew Holiday missed a wide open corner three because Luka was just pissed off and didn't want to cross half court.
Yep, and
they could have gotten killed a bit more in the first half. I mean, the Celtics scored 41 points in the second quarter. Yep. They were so cold to start the game. If they played a normal game in the first quarter, I mean, this is not a 9-point loss with the way, your stars came out to start the game. We're talking about a 20, 25 point loss potentially because like Luka and Kyrie had to be better and they weren't. Luka was shot under 50% from the floor. He shot 2 of 8 from 3. Kyrie was 9 of 20 from the floor. Didn't look particularly great. He had some moments. I think he had a couple moments in the fourth where he thought, okay, he's going to turn it on. But
he had a nice close to the third quarter, I think, which might have gave Dallas a little bit of air. And the Kyrie discussion, as always, is very frustrating because I think that you get his largest supporters who are like, he can't get in rhythm if he's not shooting the ball. I mean, I'm not aware of anybody telling Kyrie not to shoot the ball. He just doesn't force it. And he was getting opportunities towards the end of the third. He had 2 10-footers where he drove with the purpose and gets kind of right below the free throw line, plants hard and rises and fires. And statistically speaking, that's a shot defenses are happy to give up. I'm glad. I want Kyrie to take more of them, but it's like, this is just one of these situations where if Kyrie's not going to catch and shoot threes, Dallas doesn't run enough offense. They don't run enough plays. So you're either relying on Kyrie being a one-on-one wizard or you're looking for some, he's playing out of a pick and roll in certain situations. And against Boston's length, unless Luka's kicking the crap out of them, Kyrie wasn't going to be very effective unless he was taking a lot of 3-pointers. And he didn't do that tonight. That's okay.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, Derek White, Drew Holiday backcourt, also
the backcourt.
Not fun to go against. It just feels a little worse because he also had a stinker against the Lakers. He only had 12 points on 16 shots. So he's had 2 it's not great timing. He's had his two worst games of the month coincide with the 2 games Luka's come back after missing, like the 5 previous games.
Following, quite candidly, this is not hyperbole.
Yeah.
That 5-game stretch, our friend Istok Franco had a Twitter thread about this. That 5-game stretch was possibly Kyrie's best 5-game stretch statistically in his career. Which is crazy to say for a man that talented with those kind of accolades, but it hangs on you and it frustrates you. And I don't necessarily think it's one of those things that gives the people that don't think they can play together excuses, but this wasn't that. The Celtics are the best team in the league. I don't want to do Nick Angstad of Locked On Mavs made a lot of Twitter mad when he's like, what? Like the Celtics are a better team. And
people are mad about this.
I agree. Like I don't want to downplay anybody's feelings. I'm just like, my frustration came from how the Mavericks looked, not so much how the result of the game, where it's like, okay, they lost, but if they would have lost by 4 points, or I asked you to talk about something. They lost by 9 points tonight, but why don't you discuss that one stat that you had pulled out before this game? Do you remember it?
Yeah. So they had 12 losses last season with 10 or more points. And that was something we talked about a lot, how it was weird that this 38-win team just does not get blown out. It was because they made so many 3-pointers. They just made every game close, regardless of their effort level. And this season they have 13. They have 13 losses already this season with 10 or more points. Almost got their 14th tonight, but it's 9. So that doesn't count, but they still have 13. So they already have 1 more than they did last season. And we've still got, almost a half season left of games to go. And I just thought that was interesting, because usually, and this team is still making a lot of 3-pointers. It's not that their 3-pointers have really fallen off compared to last season. So I don't know. When I tweeted it, I didn't really know what to make of it. Is this a sign of something? You mentioned in Slack that there's more blowouts league-wide this season, so they might be caught up in that trend. But they're losing, they're losing games more easily, I guess you should say, compared to last season. And last season they were a 38-win team. Now you want to flip the other side of the coin, the glass half full, is they had 15 wins all of last season against teams below 500. They're 14-4 against below 500 teams this season. So I don't know what it means for this season, but it might be, I don't know. Maybe last season was just maybe it just means last season was just super weird. Because, you're supposed to beat the bad teams. A team like the Mavericks, if you want to be in that range, the playoff range that they're aiming for, you got to beat the bad teams and do your best against the good ones. But if you beat the bad teams, you'll probably be in the playoffs. And they're still doing that. But I don't know, people are mad, and this game didn't tell me anything I didn't already know.
No.
The Mavericks are not as good as the Celtics. Are people pissed off because they're not as good as the Celtics without their second best player and on the second night of back-to-back? I don't know. I guess
my man, where is it at? So my man Brian, who comes on the live show, I might host one tonight just because I stupidly drank a bunch of caffeine at 8:30. So I think I might be awake and host one tonight. He shared with stats. So the Mavs are now 16-17 since an 8-2 start to the season. 500 basketball after an 8-2 start to the season. That's what you're telling me. I mentioned this last time we talked. If the Mavericks finish 44-38, that's a 6-game improvement. It's pretty good.
Success.
It's pretty good. It's not what people want. You want to see connected basketball. You want to see some sense of growth and going somewhere. And that 21-22 season, that second half of the year where the Mavericks essentially played, they won something like 70% of their games after Tim Hardaway went down. I'm pretty sure of that. I could be wrong, but Tim Hardaway went down against the Golden State Warriors at the end of January. That pulled him out of the lineup. And so the Mavericks had 7.5 guys, and they rolled deep. They played a scrambling defense. They shocked the shit out of everyone. They also did this thing, because this just happens in March and April. Teams start to tank. So you start beating teams if you're trying to make the playoffs and the schedule pans out that way. And I think that's given our fan base a little bit of a misconstrued notion of what a non-contender does in the regular season. you try to build stretches. You try to have things where teams are building towards something and are fixing their weaknesses. Brad Townsend shared this really interesting stat that the Mavericks have made a deal at the postseason for 7 straight years. I didn't even realize that, and we run a Mavericks website together. That might happen again this year, but what does that tell you is that most of these moves are inconsequential. Like, they don't move the needle for a team. Like, who did the Mavericks trade for somebody in 21-22? I don't remember. Did it matter? Like, I'm just, and I bring all this up to say, like, where we are as a team is very frustrating because we're like right in the doldrums of
21-22, by the way, was when they traded KP.
They traded KP away.
Yeah.
That's right. So they sent him away.
Yeah.
And so it was essentially subtraction. They got Spencer Dinwiddie. That was that was when things started to roll. I was wrong about no, Tim did get hurt then because he wasn't part of the conference finals teams. He was just, we kept thinking he was
Tim
come
did
back.
get hurt. Yep.
So yeah, that was why the Mavericks were rolling. So it's just like, is it possible that the Mavericks figure something out and go on a hell of a win streak? I mean, yes. I just don't think so. So
but that's also okay.
What for me, when I live game to game and get just as mad as you guys during the games, trust me, my Twitter feed reflects that. It's why like Skin Wade hated me for several years because he thought I was just a lunatic. I'm like, no, I'm just the drunk at the sports bar. But this is one of these things where you get fans like, you can't waste a year of Luka. Don't disagree.
For sure.
But Rome wasn't built in a day. God, I'm sorry. This is a fantastic comment. We're going to get Grant Williams some help. We're going to circle back to Grant Williams here after we take a short break. So just want to let you guys know, though, really appreciate everybody who is listening on our Apple podcast feed because of this weekend, after 6 weeks of fuckery, we got that baby fixed, which means most of our listeners are actually listening to this pod again. Thank God. Josh and I have been podcasting a little bit into the void. If you could leave us a review on whichever podcast service you listen to, I would be incredibly grateful, or just leave a star rating. That sort of stuff really helps us. Josh and I have taken a beating these last 2 years. First, moving away from SB Nation. They opted to let us go. They replaced like 40 podcasts with the Andre Iguodala podcast. So it's kind of hard to be mad at them. And then we just had this screwy issue with our RSS feed that it took the tech guys forever to get a hold of. And now we're back in line. While you're here, if you're here listening to the YouTube live show, I would appreciate it if you go and give us a like and consider giving us a subscription. We go live after every show, after every game, one way, shape, or form or another. Sometimes we even do 2 shows where you can join and talk and yell at me if you think I'm wrong. We're just a couple of guys talking a little bit of hoops. All right, thanks for letting me chill. And if you'd also listen to these ads on the podcast feed, I'd very much appreciate it. All right, Josh, what should we talk about next? Because I just ended that last segment with like a 90-second soliloquy. I didn't mean to, but I was kind of all over the map.
No, that's okay. Before we get into some deeper Maverick stuff with this game, because there's definitely some lineup stuff we could talk about, and there's some more players we need to talk about. I just wanted to touch on the Celtics because this is really, I try to watch non-Mavericks games as much as I can, but it's really difficult when this is our second job, basically. And, we work full time during the day. We both have families and young children,
Right.
I do my best. But what I do is I just consume from all the smart people that are watching a lot of these games to help keep me, know what's going on around the league. But I can't always watch national TV games or League Pass or what have you. So this was really one of my first up close looks at the Celtics, like really getting to watch, not just watching highlights or watching a half, while out to dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
And what I took away was 2 things. One, they're really good, which is duh. They're really good. But they're also interesting in that, something I've heard from a lot of smart people, particularly Zach Lowe beats this drum a lot, is, he's always like, I wish the Celtics, instead of just making that automatic kick out for a 3, I wish they would just go to the rim more. Mm-hmm. And like, they don't go to the rim. Like, it's just, for a team as athletic and as talented as they are, and for as many guys that are as capable with the ball in their hands, like White and Holiday and Brown and Tatum, and even Porzingis, like when he's healthy, like the fact that they are not one of the top rim teams in the league is kind of surprising. And I get that they have to take a lot of threes because they've got so many good 3-point shooters. But I totally saw it in this game where I was like, the only reason it was a 26-24 game after the first quarter, like they went 1 of 10 from 3, and they should have been down a bunch, but they just went to the basket almost every play, and they were getting what they wanted because let's be real, with the Mavericks, without Exum, when you're having to play Luka, Kyrie, and Tim Hardaway Jr., a lot of minutes, and you don't have Exum, and you've got this compromised version of Grant Williams. They just don't have a lot of perimeter defense. It's basically Derek Jones on an island a lot of the time, and then hope Derek Lively or Maxey can clean it up. So I was like, they should keep doing that. And they kind of stopped. I mean, they started making threes in the second quarter, but the second half, like, they just don't force the issue a lot. Like, there's a way you can shoot a lot of threes and still, attack the paint fairly well. And I just thought that stood out. And I wonder if that's going to be like their Achilles heel in the postseason are they going to have a shooting slump for like a game or two, and they just don't compensate it by getting to the basket. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was, I was watching the game and like I almost felt like I was like coaching the Celtics. I was like, wait, why are you stopping at the free throw line?
Right.
You had a step, or why are you passing it up at the rim? You had a layup or a foul. I just thought that was interesting. We're not a Celtics podcast, so I thought that was interesting. And then, like I said, they're just really good, and I think that their defensive versatility is really impressive. And I don't know, just I thought this was a difficult game for the Mavericks, even considering the circumstances, just with like White and Holiday. Like, those guys did not shoot the ball very well. Holiday did, but Derek White was 2 of 12 from the floor. But man, like, he made some plays. Like,
yep.
Those are 2 good players. So that's my little soliloquy. There's my Celtics soliloquy.
He forced a Kyrie turnover as Kyrie was taking the ball up the court on the right side of the court. He just pestered him enough. Like Kyrie Irving, one of the best ball handlers.
His only turnover of the game.
Multiple generations. Like that's and so it's really something. This is funny. When Kyrie played with LeBron, they ran. Kyrie would alley-hoop LeBron the whole game with Luka. The Mavs play slow, and Kyrie is in the corner. Does not look right. If you think Kyrie Irving stands in the corner, you're not watching the game. He stands at the wing. I'm just sassing people. I love people that join this whole thing. So with the recipe for this game was that Luka was going to be cooking, and then Kyrie would feast on the fact that they would have to over-adapt to Luka.
They never had to. Yeah.
They never had to. The one change that happened in the second half that I just don't fucking understand, is why do we care that Maxey Kleber, like, what is that? He played 25 minutes along with Derek Lively playing 25 minutes. He played 9 minutes in the second half.
Lively did, right?
Lively did, yeah. And he didn't do anything wrong. Like, what? Maxey is it is 2024. Maxey is a nice bit player for 12 minutes a game, or you play him as a stretch 4 with Lively. You stop playing him as a stretch 5. I don't care how good his defense is. He is a non-contributing 0 on offense, and his box score is a lie, okay? He is 3 of 7 from the field with 7 points and 2 rebounds. He had nothing the whole game. Luka forced him to take shots at the rim when the Mavericks were already going to lose. I'm pretty sure he had 5 points in the final 2 minutes of the game.
I think he had all 7 of his points in the final 2 minutes of the game.
If Derek Lively is the future, if he can't shoot right now, I at least want to see him try. One of the things that had him shoot up draft boards was not just his defensive awareness, it was his ability to shoot in workouts. It became a little bit of a legend. I would rather play the guy who is not terrified to shoot than the guy who is supposed to be your stretch 5 and doesn't do anything. Teams don't care. So tonight he took 7 shots. Prior to tonight's game, in the previous 5 games, he had taken 11 total shots through 5 games. That's a scouting report thing, guys. That goes in the scouting report. You see it. You might not remember it, but if Maxi Kleber gets the ball, you don't care because he's not shooting it. Just let him take it. We'll live and die by Maxi shooting threes. That's fine. If Maxi Kleber beats us, we're fine with that. That's a coaching. That's right there. I can tell you that exists on these short scouting reports. And I don't understand. The only offense that was alive from the Mavericks were Luka Lively pick and rolls, were Kyrie Lively pick and rolls. Enough of this Maxi crap. I don't want to see it. It's been 6 games already. I've joked. I was like, I want Maxi back so I can be mad about Maxi. No more Maxi. No.
So
not that much, at least.
Yeah, I think 2 things happened. Well, they kind of coincide. I think the coaching staff rode the in-game plus minus a little too hard. Maxi finished -1. Lively was -7. And as we both said, those can be very deceiving. In-game plus minus can be very deceiving. And I just wonder if the coaching staff was looking at that kind of stuff at halftime and just overcorrected. And to be fair, that's not just a kid thing. Rick Carlisle overreacted to in-game plus minus all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time he did that. So that's certain thing. That's a quirk with coaches. They look at the box score at halftime. They see that number and then they make adjustments. So that's part of it. Another is the Celtics do play 5 out, which means Lively has to close out and be away from the rim. And that wasn't always working in the second quarter when the Celtics made a bunch of threes. They scored 41 points. I think my counter to that is I don't necessarily disagree with that line of thinking. Like, hey, let's let Maxi be the one who can close out because he's much more comfortable. And I think he did a little bit of a better job. The Celtics didn't make as many threes in the second half. But the balance was just out of whack. Like, I don't think that necessarily means Lively has to be sent to the phantom zone for most of the second half, They could have found a way to better balance it because Maxi was on the floor for long stretches where they were getting some stops, but they were not
scoring,
making headway. Yeah, because he, and Lively had 6 points. I know Maxi technically had more points, but all Maxi's points basically came in garbage.
Lively had 3 gorgeous finishes.
Yeah.
He caught one.
Yeah, go ahead.
He caught one oop up high, but the ball was deflected just so he catches it, brings it down, but does not bring the ball to his waist. He keeps it near his head and using his big 7-foot frame, jumps up and dunks it. A couple plays later, he guides another tipped pass. Actually, I think Drew Holiday might have bumped him on the jump, which is like one of those fouls they simply never call. If Drew hadn't bumped him on the roll, Lively would have jammed it. But instead, Lively catches it and kisses it off the glass. And then he had one more finish that made me just be like, "Oh my god!"
He was really good on the boards too.
Maxi
had 2 rebounds.
And so you're hearing me. One of my friends, Kenny, kind of goaded me on the Twitter about how Dwight Powell is like an elite roll man. And I just, as a former big man who sucked ass at rolling, I get sort of offended when people are like, rolling's an easy skill. It's not.
No, it's not. Jesus Christ.
Lively is so good at it.
Or Willie Cauley-Stein would still be in the league. Like
JaVale McGee, all these clown players the Mavericks had as center for several years. Went through the list like Moses Brown.
Yeah. If it was so easy, then why haven't those guys learned it?
Christian Wood was pretty good at it.
Yeah, he was pretty
KP couldn't do it. Still, because but that's
he was pick and pop. He could, but now he's doing it now. He's doing everything now.
Yeah, he looks better now.
But yeah, Lively also had 4 offensive rebounds. Mavericks actually won the battle on the boards, 48-44, which is not something they do. And I thought like he was getting a hand. Like when he was on the floor, the Celtics could not close possessions very well, even when the Mavericks missed a shot. Like even though he had 4 offensive rebounds, but he probably altered or tipped a few more and made some a little bit more difficult. He only had 2 fouls. Like I'm not, again, I understand the coaching strategy and the Celtics are playing 5 out. Let's get Maxi in there to close out the shooters. But I just think they could have worked that balance a little bit better. And Lively, I just would have liked to see more Lively. Like maybe instead of them being equal, like could it have been Lively 30, Maxi 20? Just something a little bit. I just don't think Lively played poorly enough with the stretch fives, with the 5 out ball to just get mothballed as much as he did in the second half. That's all.
Yep. We're going to circle back to some of the kid quotes at the end. Kyrie apparently sprained his thumb. That's something that we discovered in post game. He says he's going to play through it. That is what it is. Just to kind of finish up, like talking about the specifics of the game, like we're going to talk about him again because we have to. Grant Williams gave this pregame interview where
he talked in practice yesterday, and Brad Townsend wrote a piece about it, and then he did this pregame. Like he's on a little bit of a media tour.
He's on a media tour because he's just so friendly and he talks a lot. And I don't know, like he needs to stop until his play improves, because he sounds like a failing politician on the campaign trail with all the things he's saying, because he's playing horrendous basketball. Yeah. I think we can just kind of leave it at that. 2 points. He had one nice pass to the corner. That was kind of cool. But for most of the game, he was a pretty strong negative. I feel bad for the guy. I
don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say. Like he is quickly turned into one of the Mavericks I've liked least during my time as a Mavericks fan, and that goes back to 1999. So
and he
really
continues the stretch of their biggest offseason acquisition, just being really bad.
Right. No, yeah, and that's
welcome to the DeLon Wright, Josh Richardson club of just
guys who come that are apparently good, that when they play with the Mavericks then die.
Yeah, just don't get it. I don't. And here's a question I have for you. So the Mavericks basically played an 8-man rotation. Jaden Hardy was the 9th man, but he played 2 minutes. Doesn't matter. I'm looking at the bench. The bench was Maxey, Grant, and Tim Hardaway Jr.
Okay.
Dante Exum's going to come back, and he's going to start. So he's going to start for Josh Green. So that means Green's going to come off the bench.
Okay.
Is Grant Williams going to be in the rotation when Dante Exum's healthy?
No, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't want to see him anymore.
But I really don't. But do you think he will be out of the rotation when Exum?
I mean, I think they should try to trade him for anything as quickly as possible.
Okay.
He is almost unrecoverably bad. It's so funny because I've been talking with Golden State Warrior friends of mine who were like, I really hope the Mavericks want Wiggins. And like Wiggins is like the only guy who might be playing worse than Grant Williams.
Yeah, he might be. Okay. So you really, okay.
Can we talk about Josh Green?
Yeah, we can talk about Josh Green.
One of my friends, Sean, said to me, he's like, my optimistic take on this Mavericks game is that Josh Green played well. What the Celtics decided to do was put Al Horford on him. Al Horford is my age, and they didn't care what Josh Green did. Josh Green shot the ball well. I want him to keep shooting. His shot, like the annual, the second annual elbow sprain has really helped his shot. Like, so at least there's that. Pretty pleased about that. Now let me read you. I'm going to read you a pair of quotes. Kind of side here. Where did it go? I have too many tabs open. So for those of you who don't know, the Minnesota Timberwolves lost to the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, they lost to the Hornets tonight. But Karl-Anthony Towns scored 62 points. He had 44 at the half, the most in a half, I think, ever. Maybe in record. It's been since like play-by-play basketball, like since live television. It's incredible. 44 points, just a gajillion. Coach Chris Finch after the game. It was an absolute disgusting performance of defense and immature basketball all the way through the game. This is what happens when you have this type of approach. What a quote. Now, I'm going to read to you one from Dallas Mavericks head coach Jayson Kidd. Just a little side-by-side for this one. I think we were just a little bit frustrated with the officiating and we lost our focus. We've got to be better.
I mean, he's not wrong.
It's one of the things that I think is interesting, where it's just like when I settle on this, I get so mad when I read these kid quotes, because I think as you know, a manager in my day job and, you know, managing guys in Mavs Moneyball, you can't throw your team under the bus. However, it has been explained to me, and I tend to understand that a coach has certain motivational bullets in his chamber to use every year. And when Kidd goes at the team like he does in some of these games, he does so because he knows he only has so many times to be passive aggressive before he loses them. He doesn't do it that often. I think tonight's not the game for Kidd to go off on the team.
He usually saves it for a bad defensive game because that's what pisses him off the most.
What I just don't, I wanted to circle back on Kidd because like the lively of it all really frustrated me. But at the same time, like this is not Kidd's finest performance. It's also not like the Mavericks are still get 5 games over 500. Like it's just, he's not wrong. Kidd is not wrong when he basically implies like these guys are professionals. It's their job to get out and execute. I just think we would like to see, a lot of us were like raised on firebrand coaches and we want to see that. And I think in hindsight, Rick Carlisle wasn't even that much of a firebrand coach because he just like, you lose players that way. You just do. The season's too long. And so I'm not like back here necessarily. I've kind of needed to talk myself through this in the podcast because I'm going to be too crazy about Kidd again. I wish he would do some stuff differently, but it's like, what?
I wish you would take a technical every now and then.
That's about all. Yeah. Because like Luka was getting the shit beat out of him in that first half. Like that Grant Williams foul at the half that wasn't called, like that was a foul. He got broadsided. Like, granted, I don't believe Grant Williams would have made the free throws, so it doesn't really matter. It's just it's one of these things where we keep coming back to it, and like things are really going to have to go sideways, and I don't want them to go sideways. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the only thing tactical, like besides the lively, tactically, like maybe send a double at Jaylen Brown once in a while, but
right. It's not like Brown's a good passer. Bobby, this is a good quote. Yeah. Bobby in the chat says we need Kidd to stand up for players, and he doesn't even do that. Yeah, it's like maybe there's got to be one of these post game comments where if things are really sideways, him going off and getting a foul, like a fine with the refs, like something like that would be nice. I guess.
I mean, the free throw disparity was Celtics had 30 attempts, Mavericks had 14. So
yeah.
This might have been a game to do it. I mean, I don't know. By the way, Jayson Tatum, 39, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 0 turnovers.
Yep, and a lot of the free throws.
Did not feel like that while I was watching the game. But
first quarter was big. He had a lot of points in the first quarter.
Okay. I thought that he was more impressive.
Well, it's so odd. So it was funny hearing Harp he's like, that's a 6'8", 6'9" guy. He's really talented. Jayson Tatum is a shade away from 7 foot. He is an enormous player. Our guy Matthew always talks about this. He's there with like KD in terms of size, and you don't really see it on the floor, but you gotta trust me on this one. That's a big man. Because it's tough watching him. He is so tall, and just rangy too. It's really impressive to watch him play. I don't know. Yeah. I don't. He's not the player Luka is, but he is quite a fascinating player. I like him all the same. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. I was going to host a live show, but my wife just sent me a text and asked me to not do one tonight because we apparently have to go do a very, very early morning daycare tour. Yay.
Oh, that's fun.
It's the way life goes sometimes. Mm-hmm. When do we play again? We have a lot of games.
They play against Phoenix on Wednesday, right?
Oh, yeah. So that's the nonsense
National
rivalry
TV,
game.
ABC game. So
against the Suns, and the Suns just won on a game winner from Kevin Durant, a double clutch, kind of Dirk Nowitzki-esque left elbow shot, really beautiful shot.
Suns are playing very, very well. They have won. They're 6 in a row. So they've turned it around because their big three is finally healthy. So
well, if there was a stretch for them to sort of get their lives together, it would be this Phoenix, Atlanta, Sacramento, Orlando stretch. Now, none of those teams is a pushover, but they could theoretically win all 4 of those games. Like those are games I feel good about. Because then you play this just murderer's row where you go Minnesota, Milwaukee, Philadelphia. I mean, Joel Embiid scored 70 points tonight. Joel Embiid gets a lot of like floppy foul calls, but he shoots like 90+% from the line. he might score 80 points against the Mavericks interior defense. And I'm not looking forward to that. So I would like for the Mavericks to figure something out a little bit.
Yeah, they need to go 2-2 in these next 4 games, like minimum.
I mean, I think that's kind of likely though. The rest of the way they play, they're going to play 500 basketball. I mean, there's not, you kind of scroll through and they don't, there's like a post All-Star break stretch where they're going to be playing a couple of teams that might have decided to pack it in by now, but it's the Mavericks really want to make the playoffs. So I'm going to be very, there's just a lot.
Hey, they still have to play Detroit twice before the season's over. So there you go.
Hey, 2 wins. Though if we lose to Detroit at that point, I don't think it's
I'm
fine.
Gonna log off.
Yeah. It's fine. I know. T-Bone says, Kirk, we do need another live show. My wife says I can't. I'm sorry. Plus, like, I don't know. I want to do one after a win. I need to get back in my groove. I need to get. People
might be too angry for you tonight.
Yeah, this is just do you think we will do a live show on Wednesday, Kirk? That game is at 9:00, and so I would guess maybe yes, just because it's like at that point I reach a point in the evening where it's like, well, if I'm going to be up, I'm going to be up till the baby has a feed at like 2 or 3 in the morning. So yeah, Eric says, Josh, you join the live show. Josh doesn't want to do these, guys. I'm a shitty radio DJ on these live shows. You guys are the ones that help make the show. Buddy, if you Brian says, if you think we won't still be angry after a win, it's a great point. Harris says the game is at 7:30. I'm a moron. All right.
Those ABC Wednesday games are like, they're always 7:30.
I wonder if that got bumped because our spreadsheet says 9. I wrote it down because we have this whole big organizing sheet. Oh, well, it probably did. Nobody cares about our problems. All right. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. Thanks so much for listening. Please remember to leave us a review, shoot me an email, do all that fun stuff. We'll talk to you guys on Wednesday, and go Mavs.